Industrial facilities rely on heavily documented routine procedures. When machinery breaks, the claims process should be straightforward. But in 2014, a standard industrial breakdown claim triggered a 34-month legal battle, forcing a national commission to penalize an insurer for acting in bad faith. The case is Consumer Complaint Number 396 of 2018, SKS eSpot and Power Limited versus Oriental Insurance Company Limited. This dispute exposes a recurring tactic in industrial insurance, the attempt to weaponize generic policy exclusions, like normal wear and tear, to deny payouts for highly specific, objectively documented accidental damage. By deconstructing the National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission's judgment, we can map out the strict legal guardrails that dictate exactly when an insurer is legally permitted to discard an independent surveyor's report. The Commission's ruling sends a clear warning to the insurance industry. Technical policy defenses cannot mask unjustified delays, nor can they circumvent statutory evidentiary requirements. The facts of the incident begin on March 14, 2014, inside the SKS Ispat Integrated Steel and Power Plant in Raipur. The facility operated a 25 MVA Turbo Generator in Unit 1. This specific, high-value asset was covered under a fire industrial all-risk policy, which included a specific add-on for machinery breakdown. Late that night, the turbine was running smoothly at a full capacity of 24.6 megawatts. Suddenly, the operator heard a massive sound. A severe electrical arc flashover sparked directly inside the generator casing. This flashover caused a severe stator earth fault. The automated safety systems triggered an immediate trip, forcing a total shutdown of Unit 1. Because this failure happened instantaneously to a machine actively generating at full load, the initial incident established an undeniable acute physical event. For the insured, this set a highly objective baseline of proof. Immediately following the breakdown in March 2014, the evidence collection began. SKS Ispat promptly notified Oriental Insurance. Within 10 days, a joint inspection was conducted at the facility, involving an independent preliminary surveyor and engineers from the original equipment manufacturer, BHEL. The BHEL engineers identified a precise root cause. A single core lamination strip had dislodging from its position. The exposed, sharp knife edge of this metal strip physically sliced into the adjacent coil insulation, puncturing the stator. Repairing this puncture posed an engineering challenge. The stator was manufactured using a global vacuum pressure impregnation process. This fuses the entire core and winding into a single monolithic block. Removing the damaged coil to rewind it would destroy the surrounding core structure. Consequently, BHEL issued a formal technical opinion stating that this specific mechanical dislocation was extremely rare, entirely accidental, and necessitated a completely new stator. Oriental Insurance then appointed a final statutory surveyor, Sanjay Dwivedi and Associates. After reviewing the physical damage and BHEL's technical report, the surveyor formally agreed. The failure was a covered electrical breakdown. The surveyors subsequently issued an addendum report, explicitly quantifying the insurer's net liability at exactly 1.73 crore rupees. Within a few months of the power trip, the statutory surveyor and the equipment manufacturer had independently built an objective, extensively documented case proving an accidental mechanical failure. Despite having a finalized, quantified assessment, the claim sat unpaid. 2 full years passed. Then, in 2016, the insurer introduced a new entity to the process, a private investigator named J. Bashir and Associates. The investigator did not focus on the sliced insulation or the dislocated metal strip. Instead, they bypassed the immediate physical evidence entirely, choosing to analyze the machine's historical operating logs. Looking at this chart of historical data, the investigator argued that the machine had displayed persistently low insulation resistance, or IR values, for years. According to their report, this indicated the generator wasn't suffering from an acute accident, but was deteriorating from age. Oriental Insurance used this interpretation to formally invoke General Exception Number 5 of their policy, which excludes liability for deterioration and normal wear and tear. To bolster this defense, the insurer pointed out that SKS Ispat had sought quotes for rotor repairs months before the crash. They implied the plant operators were actively hiding uninsurable pre-existing defects. The insurer's legal tactic was clear: By ignoring the physical metal puncture and focusing on historical resistance values, they attempted to reframe a sudden mechanical accident into a chronic, uninsurable maintenance failure. To understand why this tactic ultimately failed, we have to look at the Supreme Court of India, specifically the binding precedent set in Sri Venkateshwara Syndicate versus Oriental Insurance. The Supreme Court established a strict directive regarding insurance claims. An insurer cannot continually appoint successive surveyors or independent investigators simply to generate a tailor-made report that justifies rejecting a claim. The court created a specific legal logic test that an insurer must pass before discarding a statutory surveyor's assessment. First, was a licensed surveyor appointed under the Insurance Act? In this case, yes. Second, does that primary surveyor's report contain inherent defects, arbitrary assessments, or clear evidence of bad faith? Here, the original report aligned perfectly with the manufacturer's own physical findings. Finally, to bypass a valid report, the insurer bears the absolute burden of providing cogent and convincing reasons in writing before they appoint a secondary investigator. Oriental Insurance provided none. Under the Insurance Act, a licensed final surveyor carries immense statutory evidentiary weight. A privately hired secondary investigator operates strictly at the insurer's discretion. Oriental Insurance failed to meet the Supreme Court's strict evidentiary threshold. Because they lacked legitimate grounds to dismiss the first surveyor, their reliance on the subsequent investigator's report was legally void. This legal vulnerability was compounded by technical reality. In May 2016, the original surveyor issued a direct rebuttal to the investigator's claims, methodically dismantling the wear and tear hypothesis. The surveyor pointed out a physical impossibility in the insurer's argument. This chart compares the turbine's documented output against the investigator's claims. A machine suffering from chronic terminal insulation decay cannot continuously produce over 24 megawatts of power across all 3 daily shifts, right up until the exact second of a flashover. Furthermore, historical insulation resistance values alone do not prove gradual failure when the manufacturer categorically identifies a specific mechanical puncture as the point of failure. The final collapse of the insurer's position came from their own ranks. Oriental Insurance hired an independent power consultant to review the file. In August 2016, this consultant confirmed the claim was genuine and recommended payment. Yet, 5 months later, in January 2017, the insurer issued a formal repudiation letter anyway. The January 2017 repudiation prioritized a calculated bad faith delay tactic over rigorous engineering analysis, ignoring every objective finding on record. When SKS ISPOT took the matter to the National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission, the court struck down the repudiation. The ruling explicitly noted that the insurer had relied entirely on broad assumptions while ignoring categorical technical facts. The commission ordered Oriental Insurance to pay the full 1.73 crore rupees assessed by the original surveyor. They also applied an 8% punitive interest rate calculated retroactively from 6 months after the incident, along with litigation costs. The commission classified the 34-month processing time as an unfair trade practice. Launching repeated, redundant investigations without justifiable cause constituted a legally defined deficiency in service. For the broader industry, the ruling draws a hard line. Insurers cannot deploy generic exclusions like wear and tear as blanket defenses when confronted with contemporaneous, specific technical evidence of an accident. For litigators and risk managers, the standard is clear. Independent surveyor reports carry immense weight. Discarding them requires meeting a rigorous, documented threshold of cogent reasons. The SKS ISPOT case defines the limits of an insurer's discretion. It remains strictly bound by statutory evidence, objective technical reality, and the absolute prohibition of legal malice through manufactured delay.
Zuber & Company, fire forensic experts and forensic engineers. Seeking answers from ashes. Seeking answers.